The carburetor fought me like everything else in my life lately. Grease under my fingernails, the familiar smell of motor oil filling my garage workshop. This was supposed to be my sanctuary. At 44, I'd learned that sometimes the only honest conversation you get is with a busted engine. If you can't handle me spending weekends with Tom, maybe we should break up. Erica's voice drifted through the thin walls from our kitchen. I froze, wrench halfway to the bolt I'd been wrestling with for the past hour. Tom, her ex-husband, the same Tom she'd sworn was ancient history when we got married 3 years ago. I know, baby. He's just so predictable. Always in that garage, always with his motorcycles. You understand me in ways he never could. My hands stopped working entirely. The Harley Davidson I'd been rebuilding, a 1987 Sportster that some rich weekend warrior had abandoned after a minor spill, suddenly felt like the most important thing in the world. Focus on the machine. Machines don't lie. Machines don't cheat. Tomorrow night? The Riverside Hotel again? Perfect. I'll tell him I'm having another girls' night with Mel. Girls' night with Mel. How many of those had there been in the past 6 months? 8? 10? I'd stopped counting after Erica started coming home smelling like expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine. The conversation ended, and I heard her heels clicking across our hardwood floors. I stayed crouched behind the Harley, watching through the garage window as she moved around our kitchen. Our kitchen. The one I'd renovated myself, installing custom cabinets because she'd wanted something more sophisticated for her architect friends. Erica appeared in the doorway, her auburn hair perfectly styled despite the late hour. Even after a full day at her firm, she looked like she'd stepped out of one of those home design magazines she was always reading. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Still working on that old bike? She asked, her tone carrying that particular brand of condescension I'd grown to recognize. You know, normal people have hobbies that don't involve getting covered in grease. Normal people don't abandon perfectly good motorcycles because they're afraid of a little maintenance, I replied, not looking up from the engine. This baby just needs someone who understands her. Right. Well, I'm going to bed. Try not to make too much noise when you come in. Some of us have important meetings in the morning. Important meetings. With Tom, apparently. After she left, I sat in my garage until nearly 3 a.m, staring at the Harley and thinking about the past 3 years. How I'd turned down the promotion to Singapore because Erica said her career was just taking off. In our little coastal town, how I'd supported her through the lean years when her architectural firm was struggling, how I'd believed every lie about girls' nights and late work meetings. The next morning, Erica was already gone when I woke up. A note on the kitchen counter. Working late tonight, then staying at Mel's. Don't wait up. E. Don't wait up, as if I'd been doing much of that lately anyway. I made coffee and tried to focus on the day ahead. 3 custom bikes in various stages of completion, each one representing weeks of meticulous work. My clients weren't the wealthy weekend warriors who bought their machines from dealerships. They were working people who saved up for months to afford a custom build, people who understood the value of craftsmanship. But concentration was impossible. Every time I tried to focus on a carburetor adjustment or electrical wiring, I heard Erica's voice. You understand me in ways he never could. Around noon, I decided to grab lunch from Murphy's Deli downtown. The walk would do me good, clear my head. Our town, population 23,000 on a good day, was the kind of place where you couldn't go 3 blocks without running into someone you knew. Today, that someone was Janet Morrison, our next-door neighbor and the unofficial town gossip network. Danny, how's that lovely wife of yours? I saw her car wasn't in the driveway last night. Working late again? Janet's smile was innocent enough, but her eyes held that particular gleam of someone fishing for information. In a town this size, everyone's business was everyone's business. You know how it is with architects, I said. Big project deadlines, client meetings, keeps her busy. Oh, I'm sure it does. Though I could have sworn I saw her having lunch with Tom Patterson last week at that new bistro on Harbor Street. You remember Tom, don't you? Her ex-husband? Such a small world, running into old friends like that. My sandwich suddenly tasted like cardboard. Small world indeed. Well, I should let you get back to those motorcycles of yours. Though between you and me, Danny, I don't know how you do it. All that noise and grease. If my Harold spent half as much time in the garage as you do, I'd have to stage an intervention. I managed a laugh and headed home, but Janet's words echoed in my mind. Lunch with Tom, in public. How long had this been going on? That evening, while Erica was supposedly at Mel's having her girls' night, I found myself doing something I'd never imagined, searching through her things. It felt wrong, invasive, but the alternative, continuing to live in ignorance, felt worse. Her purse sat on our bedroom dresser, designer leather that had cost more than most people's monthly rent. I'd bought it for her last Christmas, back when I still believed in us. Inside, beneath the usual collection of receipts, business cards, and makeup, I found a phone I'd never seen before. A cheap prepaid model, the kind people buy when they don't want their activities traced. The text messages told the whole story. Can't wait to see you tonight. Room 237, same as always. T. Last night was incredible. Danny's working late again, so we have all evening. E. I've been thinking about what you said. Maybe it is time to make this official. T. Soon, baby. I just need to figure out the right way to handle Danny. He's been so good to me, but we both know this marriage was a mistake. E. I scrolled through weeks of messages, each one a small knife twist. Hotel room numbers, intimate details I didn't want to read but couldn't stop myself from consuming. Plans for a future that didn't include me. The final message was from earlier that evening. Mel says the coast is clear. See you at 8. Wear the red dress I bought you. T. I set the phone back exactly where I'd found it and walked to my garage. The Harley sat there, patient and honest, waiting for me to finish what I'd started, but something had changed in me during those few minutes in our bedroom. The man who'd walked into that room had been willing to give his wife the benefit of the doubt, to believe in the possibility of misunderstandings and innocent explanations. The man who walked out was done being the fool. The Riverside Hotel was exactly the kind of place I'd expected. Not quite seedy enough to attract the wrong kind of attention, but not respectable enough that anyone would remember faces. I sat in my pickup truck across the street, engine running, watching the entrance. At 8:47 p.m., Tom Patterson's silver Tesla pulled into the parking lot. Even from a distance, I recognized his swagger as he walked toward the lobby. Tom had always carried himself like he owned whatever room he entered. Apparently that now included my wife. 15 minutes later, Erica's Honda Civic arrived. She'd changed out of her work clothes into something I'd never seen before, a red dress that hugged every curve, the same red dress Tom had mentioned in his text. I watched them embrace in the lobby through the large windows. Not a friendly hug between old acquaintances. This was the kind of embrace that told a story, the kind that made my hands clench around the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. They disappeared into the elevator together, and I sat there for another hour, watching their silhouettes move past a third-floor window. Room 237, just like the text had said. When I finally drove home, I felt strangely calm. The uncertainty was over. The wondering and doubting and making excuses for late nights and changed behavior, all of that was finished. Now I knew exactly what I was dealing with. Erica came home the next morning around 10, carrying a small overnight bag and wearing yesterday's clothes. She found me in the kitchen, drinking coffee and reading the local paper. "Morning," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. Mel and I stayed up way too late watching old movies. I should have called. "How's Mel doing?" I asked, not looking up from the sports section. "Oh, same old complaints about the antique business being slow. Nothing too exciting." Nothing too exciting. I wondered if she practiced these lies in the mirror, or if they just came naturally now. "I was thinking," I said, folding the paper and looking directly at her, "maybe we should take a vacation, get away from work for a while, spend some time together, remember why we got married in the first place." Something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe, or panic. "That sounds nice, Danny, but this is such a busy time at the firm. Maybe in a few months, when things slow down." "Right, the firm. How's that big project coming along? The one that's been keeping you so busy lately?" "It's complicated. Lots of client meetings, site visits. You know how demanding these wealthy clients can be." I nodded like I believed her. "Well, when you're ready for that vacation, just let me know. I can always ask about that Singapore position again. My old boss said the offer's still open." The color drained from her face. "Singapore? Danny, we talked about this. My whole career is here. I can't just abandon everything I've worked for." "Of course not. I was just thinking out loud." But I wasn't just thinking. I was planning. Over the next week, I began to pay attention to details I'd previously ignored. Erica's schedule, her habits, her lies. She was remarkably consistent for someone living a double life. Girls' nights with Mel every Tuesday and Friday, late work meetings on Thursdays, weekend site visits that somehow never required her to dress like she was visiting construction sites. I also started paying attention to Tom Patterson. Our town was small enough that avoiding someone was nearly impossible, but I'd managed it for 3 years. Now I made it my business to know his routine. Tom owned Patterson Real Estate, one of those agencies that specialized in selling overpriced houses to wealthy transplants from the city. His office was on Harbor Street, 3 blocks from Erica's architectural firm. Convenient for lunch meetings, apparently. He drove the Tesla everywhere, even for trips that were easily walkable. The car was his statement piece, his way of announcing to everyone that Tom Patterson had made it. The vanity license plate read Closer, which I assumed was some kind of sales reference, though it struck me as unintentionally honest in other ways. On Wednesday afternoon, I happened to be walking past the Harbor Street Bistro when I saw them together. Not hiding, not being particularly careful, just 2 people having lunch, leaning across the table toward each other, sharing the kind of intimate conversation that should have been happening between Erica and me. I stood there for a full 5 minutes, watching through the window. Tom reached across the table and took her hand. She laughed at something he said, the genuine laugh I hadn't heard from her in months. When the waitress brought their check, Tom paid with a credit card and made a show of leaving a large tip. That's when I realized something important. Tom Patterson was a man who needed to be seen. His success, his generosity, his conquest of another man's wife, it all had to be public, had to be witnessed and acknowledged. That kind of ego was a weakness, and weaknesses could be exploited. I started carrying a small notebook, jotting down observations. Tom's routine, his favorite restaurants, his business meetings. The times when he was most likely to be alone, most likely to be vulnerable. I also started paying attention to the town's gossip network. Janet Morrison was just one node in a complex web of information sharing that included the postal workers, the bank tellers, the waitresses at Murphy's Deli, and the regulars at O'Malley's Tavern. In a town this size, reputation was everything, and reputation could be destroyed with the right information delivered to the right people at the right time. But I needed more than gossip. I needed evidence, and I needed leverage. The opportunity came on Friday night. Erica announced another girls' night with Mel, kissing me goodbye with the same casual affection she might show a brother. After her car disappeared down our street, I gave her 30 minutes to get settled wherever she was really going. Then I drove to Tom's house. Tom lived in Hillcrest Estates, the kind of gated community that our town's old-timers complained was ruining the local character. His house was a McMansion with a 3-car garage, perfectly manicured lawn, and the kind of outdoor lighting that suggested either paranoia or pride. The Tesla wasn't in the driveway. I parked 2 blocks away and walked back, staying in the shadows between streetlights. Tom's garage had windows, and through them I could see his other vehicles, a vintage Corvette and a motorcycle he'd probably ridden less than 100 miles. The garage side door was locked, but the lock was cheap hardware store quality. I'd installed better security on garden sheds. It took me less than 3 minutes to get inside. I wasn't there to steal anything or cause obvious damage. I was there to send a message, and messages had to be carefully crafted. Tom's workbench was pristine, the kind of setup that looked impressive but saw little actual use. His tools were expensive and barely worn. Everything was organized with the obsessive precision of someone who valued appearance over function. I found what I was looking for in his recycling bin. Credit card statements, hotel receipts, restaurant bills, all the paper evidence of his affair with my wife, carelessly discarded because Tom Patterson was too arrogant to imagine anyone would dare investigate him. But I took something else too. In his desk drawer, underneath a stack of real estate contracts, I found a small jewelry box. Inside was an engagement ring, not huge, but expensive enough to make a statement. The receipt was still there, $8,400, purchased just 3 days ago. Tom Patterson was planning to propose to my wife. I put everything back exactly as I'd found it, except for one small change. On his pristine workbench, I left a single motorcycle bolt, the same type I'd been working with in my garage the night I discovered Erica's affair. Let him wonder how it got there. The boxing gym on Riverside Avenue had been my refuge since high school. Mickey O'Brien, the owner and trainer, was pushing 70 but still had the reflexes of a man half his age. He'd taught me that fighting wasn't about anger, it was about control, timing, and knowing when to strike. "You're hitting like you're mad at the bag," Mickey observed as I worked through my 3rd round on the heavy bag. "What's eating you, Danny?" I stopped punching and leaned against the bag, breathing hard. The gym was nearly empty, just me, Mickey, and an old-timer named Pete, who came in every day to work the speed bag with metronomic precision. "Hypothetical question, Mickey. If someone was making a fool out of you, what would you do about it?" Mickey's weathered face creased into something that might have been a smile. "Hypothetical, huh? Well, hypothetically, I'd say getting mad is what amateurs do. Professionals get even." "And how would a professional go about that?" "Depends on what kind of fool they're making you out to be. But generally speaking, the best revenge is making someone face the truth about themselves in front of people who matter to them." I thought about that while I finished my workout. People who matter to them. For Tom Patterson, that would be his clients, his business associates, the social circle he'd worked so hard to impress. For Erica, it would be her colleagues at the firm, her friends, the professional reputation she'd built over the past 5 years. That evening, Erica came home early for once. She found me in the kitchen preparing dinner, something I'd been doing more often lately, partly because cooking helped me think, and partly because it was one of the few domestic activities that still felt normal. "Smells good," she said, setting her purse on the counter. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion. Just thought it would be nice to eat together for once." She sat at the kitchen island watching me work. For a moment, it almost felt like the old days, when we'd talk about our days over dinner, when she'd tell me about difficult clients, and I'd share stories about the interesting bikes that came through my shop. "Danny," she said, and something in her tone made me look up from the pasta I was stirring. "I've been thinking about us lately, about our marriage." Here it comes, I thought. The conversation where she tells me she's been unhappy, that we've grown apart, that maybe we should consider separation. The conversation where she gets to be the victim of circumstances rather than the architect of betrayal. "What about it?" I asked. "I know I've been distant lately. Work has been so stressful, and I feel like I haven't been the wife you deserve." The wife I deserve. I wondered if she'd practiced this speech, if she'd rehearsed it with Tom, or gotten advice from Mel on how to let me down easy. "We all go through stressful periods," I said. "That's what marriage is about, right? Supporting each other through the tough times." She nodded, but I could see the conflict in her eyes. Whatever she'd planned to say, she was having second thoughts. "Maybe we should take that vacation you mentioned," she said finally. "Get away from everything, just the two of us." "I thought you said work was too busy for a vacation." "It is, but maybe I need to make time. Maybe we both do." I turned off the stove and faced her directly. "Erica, is there something you want to tell me?" For just a moment, I thought she might do it. I thought she might find the courage to be honest, to give us both the chance to deal with this situation like adults. Instead, she smiled and shook her head. "Just that I love you, and I'm sorry if I haven't been showing it lately." "I love you." The words sounded hollow, rehearsed, but I nodded and served dinner, and we ate together in relative silence, both of us pretending this was a normal evening in a normal marriage. The next day was Saturday, which meant Tom would be at the Harbor Street Farmers Market. He made a point of being seen there every weekend, glad-handing potential clients and maintaining his image as a pillar of the community. I found him at the coffee stand, wearing khakis and a polo shirt that probably cost more than most people's weekly grocery budget. He was chatting with Margaret Walsh, who owned half the commercial real estate in town. "Danny Morrison." Tom's voice carried that forced enthusiasm that salespeople perfect. "How's the motorcycle business treating you?" "Can't complain," I said, stepping up to order coffee. "Custom work keeps me busy?" "I bet it does. You know, I've always admired craftsmen. There's something honest about working with your hands." Honest. The word hung in the air between us like a challenge. "How about you, Tom? Business good?" "Outstanding. In fact, I just closed the biggest deal of my career. Waterfront property, 8-figure sale. Sometimes I can't believe how well things are going." Margaret Walsh excused herself, and suddenly it was just Tom and me standing by the coffee cart. He was still smiling, but something had shifted in his expression. "You know, Danny, I've been meaning to ask. How's Erica doing? I ran into her downtown last week, and she seemed a little stressed." The casual way he said it, like he was just being neighborly, like he hadn't been planning a future with my wife. "She's fine," I said. "Working hard, but that's nothing new. She's always been ambitious." "Ambitious women can be challenging," Tom said, and there was something in his tone that made my jaw clench. "They need men who can keep up with them, you know? Men who understand their needs." "I suppose they do." Tom's smile widened. "Well, I should get going. Give my regards to Erica." I watched him walk away, greeting other market-goers with the same practiced charm, but I'd seen something in his eyes during our conversation, a smugness, a certainty that he'd already won whatever game we were playing. That afternoon, I made a decision. I drove to the electronics store in the mall and bought a small digital recorder, the kind that could easily be hidden in a pocket or purse. Then I stopped by the hardware store and picked up a few items I'd need for the project I was planning. Sunday evening, while Erica was in the shower, I slipped the recorder into her purse, hidden beneath the lining where she'd never think to look. It was voice-activated and had enough memory to record hours of conversation. I felt a brief moment of guilt. This was crossing a line, violating her privacy in a way that couldn't be undone. But then I remembered Tom's smug smile at the farmer's market, remembered the engagement ring hidden in his desk drawer, remembered all the lies Erica had told me over the past months. Some lines were meant to be crossed. The recorder did its work over the next week, capturing fragments of phone calls and conversations. Most of it was mundane, discussions with colleagues, calls with clients, small talk with friends. But on Wednesday evening, it captured exactly what I'd been hoping for. I can't keep doing this, Tom. The lying, the sneaking around, it's eating me alive. Baby, we've talked about this, and just a little longer until you figure out how to handle Danny. He's a good man. He doesn't deserve this. Good men finish last, Erica. You know that. You need someone who can give you the life you want, the life you deserve. I know, but nothing. I bought something for you, something that's going to change everything. Tom, what did you do? You'll see. Friday night after dinner. I have it all planned out. Friday night. The proposal. Tom was going to ask my wife to marry him while she was still married to me. I sat in my garage, listening to the recording over and over, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. The Danny Morrison who had turned down Singapore for his wife's career, who had supported her dreams and made excuses for her distance, that man was gone. In his place was someone I barely recognized, someone who was done being the good man who finished last. Friday arrived with the kind of crisp October weather that made our little coastal town look like a postcard. I spent the morning in my shop, putting the finishing touches on a custom Sportster for a client in Portland. The work was meditative, adjusting carburetors, fine-tuning electrical systems, making sure every component worked in perfect harmony. Erica left for work early, claiming she had a presentation to prepare. She kissed me goodbye with the same casual affection I'd grown accustomed to, but there was something different in her manner. Nervous energy, maybe, or excitement about the evening ahead. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Harbor Street Cafe, 1 p.m. Come alone. M. Mel, presumably. Erica's best friend and supposed alibi for all those girls' nights. I'd been wondering when she'd make her move. The Harbor Street Cafe was busy with the lunch crowd, but I spotted Mel immediately. She sat in a corner booth, nervously stirring a cup of coffee that had probably gone cold 20 minutes ago. Mel Rodriguez, I'd always thought the name didn't fit her pale Irish features, was one of those women who tried too hard to look younger than her 36 years. Today she looked every day of her age, maybe more. Thanks for coming, she said as I slid into the booth across from her. Your message was pretty mysterious. What's this about, Mel? She glanced around the cafe, making sure no one was listening. It's about Erica and Tom, and the mess they're making of everyone's lives. I'm not sure I follow. Don't play dumb, Danny. You know what's going on. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I studied her face, looking for clues about what game she was playing. Mel had never been particularly friendly toward me. She tolerated me because I was married to her best friend, but I'd always sensed she thought Erica had settled when she chose me over Tom the first time around. What do you think I should do? I asked. Stop it, before it goes too far, before everyone gets hurt. Everyone, or just you? Her coffee cup rattled against the saucer as she set it down. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm wondering why Erica's best friend is suddenly so concerned about her marriage, especially when that same best friend has been providing alibis for her affair. Mel's face went pale. I never... Sure you did. All those girls' nights at your place. Except Erica was never there, was she? She was with Tom, and you were covering for her. Danny, listen to me. You don't understand the whole situation. Then explain it to me. Mel looked around the cafe again, then leaned forward and lowered her voice. Tom's not who you think he is. He's not who Erica thinks he is either. Enlighten me. 3 years ago, when you and Erica got married, Tom was furious. Not heartbroken. Furious. He couldn't stand the idea that she'd chosen someone like you over someone like him. Someone like you. The condescension was automatic, unconscious. So he decided to get her back, I said. He decided to prove a point, that he could take her away from you whenever he wanted, that your marriage was just a temporary inconvenience. And you helped him. Mel's hands were shaking now. He threatened me, Danny. My antique shop is barely staying afloat, and Tom holds the mortgage on my building. He said if I didn't help him, he'd find a way to force me out. The pieces were starting to fit together. Tom Patterson, master manipulator, playing all the angles. So you convinced Erica to give him another chance, I said. I planted seeds, reminded her of the good times they'd had, suggested that maybe she'd been too hasty in choosing stability over passion. I made her feel like she was missing out on something. And it worked. It worked too well. She fell for him all over again, and now she's talking about leaving you. But Danny, you have to understand. Tom doesn't want her back permanently. This is all just a game to him, a way to prove he's better than you. I felt that cold, hard thing in my chest growing larger. How do you know? Mel reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. She scrolled through text messages, then turned the screen toward me. Because he told me so. The messages were from Tom to Mel, dated just 2 days ago. Hey, Phase 3 is ready. I'll propose Friday night, she'll say yes, and then we'll see how long it takes for the novelty to wear off. What if she actually wants to go through with it? Then I'll find a reason to back out. The point isn't to marry her, Mel. The point is to prove I could steal her from that grease monkey whenever I wanted. This feels wrong, Tom. She really loves you. She loves the idea of me, just like she loved the idea of stability with Danny. Women like Erica are always looking for something better. I'm just giving her what she thinks she wants. I read the messages twice, feeling something shift inside me. Not anger. Anger was too hot, too immediate. This was something colder, more calculating. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Because I'm tired of being his accomplice, and because Erica doesn't deserve this, no matter what I think about your marriage. What do you think about my marriage, Mel? She had the grace to look embarrassed. I think she married you for the wrong reasons. I think she was scared of getting hurt again, so she chose someone safe. But that doesn't mean she deserves to be manipulated and humiliated. Someone safe. There was that phrase again, the one that had been haunting me for weeks. Tom's planning to propose tonight, I said. At the Riverside Hotel, same place they've been meeting all along. He's reserved the penthouse suite. And then what? He'll string her along for a few months before breaking her heart? That's his plan. He wants to see how far he can push it, how much he can make her give up for him. Her job, her friends, her self-respect. It's all just entertainment to him. I slid out of the booth and stood up. Thanks for the information, Mel. What are you going to do? I'm going to stop it, before everyone gets hurt, like you said. Danny, wait. There's something else you should know. I paused, looking down at her pale, worried face. This isn't the first time Tom's done something like this. There was another woman, about 5 years ago, a teacher named Linda Hoffman. He pursued her for months, convinced her to leave her husband, then dumped her right before their wedding. She had a nervous breakdown, lost her job. She moved away after that. Why didn't you tell Erica about this? I tried, but Tom has a way of making people doubt what they know. He told her I was jealous, that I'd always resented her happiness. She believed him. I walked out of the cafe and sat in my truck for a long time, thinking about everything Mel had told me. Tom Patterson wasn't just a man having an affair with my wife. He was a predator, someone who destroyed lives for sport. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd assumed that Danny Morrison, the safe choice, the grease monkey, the man who finished last, would just roll over and take it. He was about to learn otherwise. That evening, I put on my best suit and drove to the Riverside Hotel. The desk clerk was a young woman I didn't recognize, probably a college student working part-time. I'm here to surprise my wife, I told her, sliding a $50 bill across the counter. She's having dinner with a friend in the penthouse suite. I wanted to send up a bottle of champagne. That's so sweet, she said, pocketing the money. What's your wife's name? Erica Morrison. She's with Tom Patterson. The clerk checked her computer. Oh yes, Mr. Patterson reserved the suite for the evening. I'll have someone take the champagne right up. Actually, I'd like to deliver it myself. Make it more of a surprise. She hesitated. I'm not supposed to give out room keys. Another $50 bill appeared on the counter. It's our anniversary. 5 minutes later, I was standing outside the penthouse suite with a bottle of champagne I'd bought from the hotel bar and a key card that would let me into the room where my wife was about to accept another man's proposal. But I didn't go in. Not yet. Instead, I sat in the hallway and waited. Through the door, I could hear voices. Tom's confident baritone, Erica's nervous laughter. The clink of glasses, the rustle of movement. At exactly 9 o'clock, Tom's voice rose with practiced drama. Erica, you know how much you mean to me. These past few months have been the happiest of my life. Tom, what are you doing? What I should have done 3 years ago. Erica Morrison, will you marry me? There was a long pause. Then, in a voice so quiet I had to strain to hear it. Yes, of course I will. I used the key card and walked into the room. They were standing by the window, silhouetted against the city lights. Erica was wearing the red dress again, and Tom was on one knee, sliding a ring onto her finger. They turned toward the door as I entered, their faces shifting from surprise to shock to something approaching terror. Danny, Erica whispered, what are you doing here? I set the champagne bottle on the nearest table and looked at both of them. I came to congratulate the happy couple. The penthouse suite fell silent, except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic far below. Tom slowly rose from his kneeling position, his face cycling through emotions, surprise, anger, calculation. Erica stood frozen, the engagement ring catching the light from the chandelier above. "Danny," she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can explain." "Can you? Because I'm genuinely curious how you explain accepting a marriage proposal while you're still married to someone else." Tom stepped forward, placing himself between Erica and me. "Look, Morrison, I know this is awkward, but—" "Awkward?" I laughed, and the sound surprised even me. It was genuinely amused, like I'd just heard the funniest joke of my life. "Tom, you just proposed to my wife in a hotel room, and you think it's awkward?" "Danny, please," Erica said, finding her voice. "Let me explain what's been happening." "I know what's been happening. The question is whether you do." I walked to the suite's bar and poured myself a whiskey from Tom's expensive bottle. Neither of them moved, watching me like I might explode at any moment. "See, here's the thing," I continued, taking a sip. "I've been doing some research lately, learning about both of you, and Erica, sweetheart, I think you should know what kind of man you just agreed to marry." "Danny, don't do this," Tom said, his salesman's smile flickering back to life. "You're upset, and rightfully so, but let's handle this like adults." "Adults? You mean like how you handled Linda Hoffman?" Tom's smile disappeared entirely. Erica looked between us, confused. "Who's Linda Hoffman?" she asked. "Tell her, Tom. Tell her about the teacher you convinced to leave her husband 5 years ago. Tell her how you proposed to Linda, too, then changed your mind right before the wedding." "That's not what happened," Tom said, but his voice lacked conviction. "No? Then what did happen?" Tom's jaw tightened. "Linda was unstable. She became obsessed, started making demands I couldn't meet. I had to end it for both our sakes." Interesting version of events. Of course, Linda might tell it differently if she hadn't moved 3 states away to escape the humiliation. Erica was staring at Tom now, and I could see doubt creeping into her expression. "Tom, is this true?" "Erica, you can't listen to him. He's desperate. He'll say anything to break us up." I pulled out my phone and played the recording I'd made of Tom's text messages to Mel. His voice filled the room, casual and cruel. "The point isn't to marry her, Mel. The point is to prove I could steal her from that grease monkey whenever I wanted." The color drained from Erica's face. "That's not... Tom, tell me that's not real." Tom looked at me with pure hatred. "You've been spying on us." "I've been protecting myself. And whether she deserves it or not, I've been protecting her too." "Danny," Erica said, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen." "Which part? The affair or getting caught?" She flinched like I'd slapped her. "The affair, all of it. I was confused, and Tom made me feel..." "Made you feel what? Special? Desired? Like you were settling for less with me?" "Yes," she whispered. "I'm sorry, but yes." At least she was being honest now. "And how do you feel now, knowing it was all a game to him?" Tom stepped forward again. "Erica, don't listen to him. He's twisting everything, taking things out of context." "Am I?" I looked directly at Tom. "Tell her about your plan. Tell her how long you were going to string her along before you got bored." "There was no plan. I love her." "You love winning. There's a difference." I finished my whiskey and set the glass down. "But here's the thing, Tom. You made one crucial mistake." "What's that?" "You assumed I'd just disappear quietly when you were done playing with my wife. You assumed the grease monkey would know his place and accept whatever scraps you left behind." Tom's expression shifted, becoming more wary. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying the game isn't over. In fact, it's just beginning." I pulled out a manila envelope I'd been carrying and set it on the coffee table. "Erica, those are divorce papers. I had them drawn up yesterday. You can sign them now, or you can sign them later, but you're going to sign them." She stared at the envelope like it might bite her. "Danny, please. Can't we talk about this? Can't we try to work things out?" "Work things out? You just accepted another man's proposal. What exactly would we be working toward?" "I don't know. I don't want to lose you." "You lost me months ago. You just didn't bother to tell me." Tom was looking increasingly agitated. "Look, Morrison, maybe we can come to some kind of arrangement. A financial settlement, something to make this easier for everyone." "A financial settlement?" I laughed again. "Tom, you really don't understand what's happening here, do you?" "Enlighten me." "You destroyed my marriage for sport. You manipulated my wife, used Mel as your accomplice, and planned to humiliate both of us when you got bored. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences?" "What kind of consequences?" I pulled out another envelope, this one thicker. These are copies of your text messages with Mel, your hotel receipts, your credit card statements, evidence of your affair, your manipulation, your pattern of behavior with other women. Tom's face went pale. You can't use those. They were obtained illegally. I'm not planning to use them in court, Tom. I'm planning to use them in the court of public opinion. What do you mean? I mean, everyone in this town is going to know exactly what kind of man you are. Your clients, your business associates, your friends at the country club, they're all going to learn about your little game. You wouldn't dare. Try me. Erica was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Danny, please don't do this. Don't destroy us all out of spite. Spite? I looked at her with something that might have been pity. Erica, this isn't spite. This is justice. I walked to the door, then turned back to face them both. You have 24 hours to decide how this ends. Erica can sign the divorce papers and we can handle this quietly, or I can make sure the whole town knows the truth about both of you. And if we don't cooperate, Tom asked, then you'll find out what happens when someone underestimates the grease monkey. I left them there, standing in their expensive suite with their shattered plans and their guilty consciences. As I walked to the elevator, I could hear them arguing, Tom trying to salvage his scheme, Erica demanding answers he couldn't give. The next morning, I woke up in my own bed for what I knew would be the last time. Erica hadn't come home, her car wasn't in the driveway, and her side of the bed was undisturbed. I made coffee and sat in my kitchen, looking out at the town I'd called home for most of my adult life. In a few hours, everyone would know the truth about Tom Patterson and Erica Morrison. The gossip network that had sustained this place for generations would do its work, and their reputations would be destroyed. But I wouldn't be here to see it. I'd already accepted the position in Singapore. My flight left that evening. At noon, I drove to the town square and parked near the gazebo where the farmers' market was setting up. I pulled out my phone and sent a group text to every contact I had. Neighbors, clients, acquaintances, anyone who might be interested in a little local drama. The message was simple. Thought you might find this interesting, followed by a link to a website I'd created overnight. The site contained everything, photos, recordings, text messages, a complete timeline of Tom and Erica's affair, and Tom's history with other women. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing with responses. Shock, outrage, requests for more information. The story was spreading like wildfire, jumping from person to person, growing with each retelling. By evening, when I boarded my flight to Singapore, Tom Patterson's real estate business was finished. 3 major clients had already canceled contracts, and the country club was discussing revoking his membership. Erica had been forced to resign from her architectural firm when her boss learned about the affair and the potential scandal it would bring to the company. As my plane lifted off, I looked down at the lights of the town growing smaller below me. Somewhere down there, Tom and Erica were dealing with the consequences of their choices. Somewhere down there, Mel was probably closing her antique shop, knowing that her role in the scheme would soon be exposed as well. I felt no satisfaction, no sense of victory. Just a cold, empty certainty that justice had been served. The grease monkey had learned to play their game after all, and he'd won. But winning, I was discovering, felt a lot like losing when you had to become someone you didn't recognize to achieve it. The plane banked east toward my new life, carrying me away from the wreckage of my old one. Behind me, the town lights faded into darkness, taking with them the last remnants of the man I used to be. The man who had believed in second chances and the power of forgiveness was gone. In his place sat someone harder, colder, more calculating. Someone who understood that in the real world, nice guys didn't just finish last. They got destroyed by people who mistook kindness for weakness. I'd made sure that would never happen to me again. As the plane disappeared into the night sky, carrying Danny Morrison toward his new life in Singapore, the town below continued to buzz with the scandal he'd left behind. By morning, everyone would know the truth about Tom Patterson and Erica Morrison. By the end of the week, both of their careers would be in ruins, their reputations destroyed, their futures uncertain. It was exactly what Danny had planned, exactly what they deserved. The only question was whether the man who had orchestrated their downfall would be able to live with what he'd become in the process. But that was a question for another day, in another place, far from the small coastal town where 3 lives had been forever changed by the choices they'd made and the prices they'd paid for making them. The plane flew on through the darkness, carrying its passenger toward whatever came next.